Shri Shri Ras Vihari Niju Ki Jai Ho. Continuing Vraja Kishori Seva Trust readings of Shri Hari Raiji's Bade Shiksha Patr. Sab Vaishnavan ko Sadar Jai Shri Radhe Jai Shri Krishna. Today is day 10. We are reading verse 19 and 20 of letter 2, followed by letter 3, verses 1 and 2. Verse 19, letter 2, verse 19. Sri Hari, Sri Krishna, the remover of all obstacles, resides in your home through the grace of Sri Vallabhacharya-ji. Cherish him there in the same way as a yogi would carefully retain quicksilver in the palm of his hand. When this blessed form of Sri Krishna, the beloved of the gopis, resides in your own home, then it is by the grace of Sri Mahaprabhuji, Sri Vallabhacharya-ji, and not as a result of your loving devotional service or any other spiritual practice. How could we possibly deem ourselves worthy of serving this Lord who is the embodiment of the gopis' mood and sentiment? However, this same Lord resides in our homes through the authority of Sri Vallabhacharya-ji, and one should remain constantly aware of this fact. Yogis cannot perceive the Lord through their meditations, and even after endless efforts in endless births are not able to see him even in a dream. But this same Lord personally resides in our own homes through Sri Mahaprabhuji, Sri Vallabhacharya-ji's grace. Remember this always and serve him carefully so that we can never cause the Lord to be unhappy because of our mistakes. I would like to repeat this verse 19 in Sanskrit. Shri Madacharya Kripaya Tishtati Swagrihe Harihi Evam Vidha Sada Haste Yoginaha Paradoyata. Very important verse, very crucial verse to the understanding of Pushti Marg. Sri Hari, Sri Krishna, the remover of all obstacles, resides in your home through the grace of Sri Vallabhacharya-ji. Cherish him there in the same way as a yogi would carefully retain quicksilver in the palm of his hand. When this blessed form of Sri Krishna, the beloved of the gopis, resides in your own home, then it is by the grace of Sri Mahaprabhuji, Sri Vallabhacharya-ji, and not as a result of your loving devotional service or any other spiritual practice. How could we possibly deem ourselves worthy of serving this Lord, who is the embodiment of the gopis' mood and sentiment? However, this same Lord resides in our homes through the authority of Sri Vallabhacharya-ji, and one should remain constantly aware of this fact. Yogis cannot perceive the Lord through their meditations, and even after endless efforts in endless births are not able to see him, even in a dream. But this same Lord personally resides in our own homes through Sri Mahaprabhuji, Sri Vallabhacharya-ji's grace. Remember this always and serve him carefully so that we never cause the Lord to be unhappy because of our mistakes. Verse 20. When you are not directly engaged in Sri Krishna's service, contemplate upon him. Complete absorption into his divinity comes when service is performed constantly with the heart and mind. It is only proper that one should serve Sri Krishna, the embodiment of loving sentiment, who is seated on Sri Yashoda-ji's lap, with one's mind totally absorbed into that service. When there is a pause from hands-on service, one should similarly meditate on Sri Krishna in one's own heart and always cherish love for him, knowing this to be one's own true path. In this way one can perfect one's connection to the Lord, as in the example of the gopis, whose consciousness was perfectly absorbed into the Lord's divinity. They experienced the moods of both union and separation, so in this way one should feel union with him whilst directly serving him, and separation from him in the intervals. Then Seva will be truly heartfelt, and one's whole consciousness will be absorbed into him. This second Shiksha Patra has 20 verses. Sri Mahaprabhuji's, Sri Vallabhacharya-ji's book of teaching Nirodha Lakshan, bound by Sri Hari, has also 20 verses, and Sri Hari Raji has composed the Shiksha Patr describing how followers of this path can truly perfect the absorption of their devotional sentiments into Sri Krishna along this parallel theme. On this very subject, the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam is the supreme revelation, and Sri Hari Raji has described all of this here. This is the Tika of verse 20, and thus concludes letter 2. Letter 3 has 16 verses, and it is a description of bad association, asatsam, which is one of the disqualities of bahirmukata, turning one's face away from the Lord. Introduction. The instructions herein are about protecting one's emotional relationship to one's Lord. When a devotee is directly serving their Lord and then contemplating him constantly at all other times, their mind and heart remains constantly with him. But these sentiments must be protected at all times from danger of worldly association or the influence of those who are not devotees. Introduction. This third letter explains the obstructions that can arise in the devotee's loving connection to the Lord. You might serve him in the manner described in the previous letter and meditate upon him in the periods between your actual service. But then, if you fall into bad company, your connective path can be brought tumbling down in a single second. Divine connection that has taken many births to establish can be destroyed by a moment's bad association, and so you must avoid such association, especially in this day and age. This letter tells you why. Verse 1. Your connection to Sri Krishna through devotional sentiment is a treasure. So renounce any concern about worldly opinion and protect that treasure from bad association, just as you would keep water away from fire. Tika 1. You must protect your spiritual treasure once gained. If a poor man receives wealth, he must make efforts to protect it, or it will be stolen. By the grace of Sri Vallabhacharya-ji, you have received this treasure of love for the Lord, and you must protect it from bad association. Bad association is of many kinds. Worldly desires, those who follow an opposite path, involvement in the worldly and scriptural duties of material relatives. Distance your mind from all of these and focus it upon the Lord. It may be asked, if one is a householder, how can one avoid worldly and scriptural duty? Here the teaching is, serving the Lord is the natural and correct righteous way for followers of the path of grace, and should be performed by one's own choice and with the mind full of love. Worldly and scriptural duties should be done for the sake of it and without any desire of fruition therefrom. In the period of service, do not leave that service. Do not allow worldly matters to encroach upon your service. One example of this is in the story of Sri Damodar Dasji Sambharwari. He was engaged in serving Sri Dwarakanaji and used to fetch the required water himself. His father-in-law told him that his bringing the water was a matter of shame to the family, and that he should have it brought by the maidservant. Damodar Dasji then asked his wife to accompany him to fetch the water. She was a divine soul and agreed to do so. They both went out to the well with their water pots. Whilst returning, they passed by the father-in-law's house, who on seeing them prostrated himself at Damodar Das's feet and said, "What I said was wrong. Please don't make your wife fetch the water." Damodar Das agreed. With this as an example, do not ever worry about the world or society may think about your service to the Lord. Be it humble or great, do all service with devotional love. Also know what is bad association. Fully loving the Lord is like fire, and bad association is like water, which can extinguish divine sentiment. Verse 2. Loving devotion for Shri Krishna is like a fire. It is as is good association, through which worldly thoughts and involvements are obliterated, just as fire can evaporate water contained in a pot. This devotion is like fire. This is Tika 2. This devotion is like fire. Good association is like kindling, as fire's force is strengthened by the addition of this fuel, so devotion is empowered by good association. Devotion's fire can be extinguished by the water of bad association, especially if there's only a little of it. Even if one may ask, how is it possible to survive without some worldly involvement? This answer is given. If you put the water of bad association into the vessel of good association, then it would not be able to touch and destroy the divine loving sentiment. because fire needs to have actual contact with water to be put out. A vessel containing water can be put on fire and still not extinguish it, rather the water will evaporate. So, feed the fire of loving devotion, the fuel of good association, and keep the water of bad association contained in a vessel. Constantly remember and ponder on devotion to Sri Krishna in your heart, and let the water in the vessel evaporate through this heat of love. Many great devotees have fallen from that status through bad association, so always keep strictly away from it. Aaj ke Anand ki jai ho. Shri Bade ki jai ho. Shri Hari Rai ji ki jai ho. Sab Vaishnavan ko sadar, saprem sanand Sanamra. Jai Shri Krishna. Shri Sarviharini Ju ki jai. Continuing tomorrow with letter 3 and verse 3.